Welcome into Off the Hook Sports, everybody. I am your host, Caleb Calhoun. I hope you all had a great week off without me last week and without the show, and a great Memorial Day off on Monday yesterday. And I hope you didn't forget what it's about, remembering everybody who passed away serving this country, reminding us the price of freedom. We got a lot to get to today as I'm back on, as there were a lot of things that happened when I was out. We have Tennessee's SP Plus rankings came out. Are they too high, too low, or just right? Also, we're going to get into some rumors about the Vols maybe leaving the SEC. Tennessee, one of 6 schools to make the postseason in all major sports. An anonymous coach says something on Heupel that caught my eye about the offense. And Greg Sankey is already melting down at the SEC spring meetings in Destin. Man, we're going to have some fun with that because he said some hilarious things on that. The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. We are live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. I want to point out up front, Dave Hooker is still out. He's still he's still out and just dealing with a major personal matter. So I'm sorry he's not back yet. Just keep him in your thoughts and prayers. That's as much as I can say to this point. I will also say, please hit that like and subscribe button. And before we dive in, I'm going to drop this link in the chat. I'm actually growing my own personal channel where I talk a little bit more sports in general, not just college football. I mean, I talk NBA, things like that. It's going to be a nightly podcast. Started it last night. I would love for you guys to subscribe to that too. It's called Sports Nightcap. I'm dropping the link to it right down here below. Sports Nightcap. That's right, where I will talk. Last night I talked some NBA with OKC beating the Timberwolves and Anthony Edwards choking late. And so, again, just tune into that. I'll be live a few nights a week, particularly after major big games. And I would love for you guys to hop into that where we could talk about some other things. Again, love the community we built here. Just want to also build a community on this front. And I think we could have a lot of fun doing that. So please hit the like and subscribe to that, and hit the like and subscribe to this video. And we are going to dive in with today's tough question. And today's tough question is right now. Tennessee came in at number 13 in the SP Plus rankings post-spring, shared by Bill Connolly last week. The SP Plus rankings include a few things: returning production, recent recruiting, and recent history. And they do these scores, and part of the returning production, they have to update these all the time now because of the transfer portal. The Vols came in at number 13. Now, is that too high, too low, just right, or does it not matter? Now, that's what I actually have a question up on as a poll question right now. It is today's tough question. Today's tough question, it's kind of a two-parter. We're going to dive into it now. Once again, today's tough question brought to you by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. Is Tennessee's number 13 SP Plus ranking a good sign for being high, a bad sign for being low, no sign because of that's exactly where they should be, or pointless because you don't believe SP Plus rankings mean anything? That's the poll question. Those are all the options on the poll question too. Please vote now when you get the chance. I want to know what your thoughts are. I want to give you my thoughts. Look, the SP Plus rankings are very objective, okay? And they overvalue somewhat the quarterback because of the amount of impact the quarterback has in terms of returning production. So losing Nico Iamaleava, and still who started every game last year for Tennessee, and guys, just so you know, last year was the first year that a quarterback under Josh Heupel started every single game. I'm going to save that point. But at Tennessee, that is. But at number 13, with losing Nico Iamaleava, that means that they have to have a good bit of returning production elsewhere, and they have to have done well on the recruiting trail, and that includes adding transfer portal guys and have recent success. So them being at number 13, I actually think is a good sign. Now, here's the bad sign for them. Again, there's debate about their schedule being easier this year than in years past and how that could benefit them. However, Alabama's number 2 in the SP Plus rankings. Georgia's number 4. Florida is one spot behind Tennessee at number 14. Here's the problem with that. Alabama number 2. Now, a lot of that's skewed because recent history being taken into account in recruiting rankings. Nick Saban's recent history is going to be taken into account. But Tennessee has to visit Alabama, where they haven't won since 2003. So them being this high at number 2, it's almost impossible to see Tennessee beating Alabama this year. Florida 1 spot behind Tennessee when the game is in Gainesville this year, where Tennessee also hasn't won in over 20 years. It's really hard to see Tennessee having an advantage over Florida. That's just tough. I'm sorry. I know you hate to hear that, but going to Gainesville's already been tough. And now Florida, according to these SP Plus rankings, is close to Tennessee's level. Now, caveat with that, Tennessee's SP Plus score is 18.4. Florida's is 1 full point behind at 17+3. But I just want to point out that Florida's SP Plus ranking, they are only 1 spot behind Tennessee. So I would say that that's still a concern based on who they're playing. And then we also can point out Georgia's number 4. Georgia's ahead of Tennessee. No surprise. Also, Tennessee hasn't beaten Georgia since the Dobbs-Neal boot game in 2016. And those are Tennessee's 3 games. And they can't afford to go 9-3 in hopes of making the college football playoff. Because while every other team on their schedule is significantly easier, and I'm just going down the list now, guys, believe it or not, the highest ranked SP Plus team outside of those 3 teams that Tennessee plays is Arkansas, of all people. Arkansas at 38. Kentucky at 43. I would think Tennessee is going to win both of those games. Syracuse down at 56, which is a good sign because at least they're not as much of a threat as we thought they might be. That's because they did lose a lot of talent despite a good first year under Fran Brown. So taking all this to account, I think Tennessee still should be, you see a very clear path to 9-3 for Tennessee, but 9-3, their schedule strength is number 24. That's not going to be enough to get them into the college football playoff the way it might for some other teams that could go 9-3. No 9-3 team got in last year. I do think the door will open for a 9-3 team to get in this year. Not Tennessee, though. So they have to go 10-2. And all 3 games, just based on the SP Plus rankings and talent, suggest that they're going to struggle and lose all 3 games. Ben Hall says it's a good sign, means on paper you're starting the season 1 spot outside the top 12, meaning theoretically you only have to upset 1 team for the playoff. Yeah, but see, Ben, the problem is Tennessee plays 2 teams ahead of them, so they have to upset 2 of them, Alabama and Georgia. And then Florida being 1 spot behind them and being a road game, I would say they have to pull 3 upsets in this. So I just want to point that out. It's still a little bit difficult. Today's tough question, again, brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott.
The poll question, Tennessee football's number 13 SP Plus ranking is a good sign, that's high, a bad sign, that's low, no sign, it's where they should be, and SP Plus rankings mean nothing anyway. The leader by a majority, by the way, is no sign. It's where they should be. That's at 55%. Just behind them, number 2 is a good sign. That's high at 23%. SP Plus rankings mean nothing is 18%, and a bad sign that's low is 5%. So that's where things are landing now. I want to point out again that Tennessee has to play 3 teams in the top 14, and they're number 13, and the 14th ranked team is on the road. That's the tough part about the SP Plus rankings to me. They are among the more objective SP Plus rankings. I just want to point that out. Okay, the SP Plus rankings have been fairly good predictors for a while, and I think that's a concern for Tennessee. Just for a quick context, one of the in 2022, if you guys remember, the legendary magical second year under Josh Heupel when Tennessee went 11-2 and got as high as number 1 in the college football playoff. Tennessee started the year, despite not being in the top 25 of either poll, they were number 10 in the SP Plus rankings. So there was a lot of excitement behind. Bill Connolly was higher on them than anybody else. And the only two teams he had ahead of Tennessee on Tennessee's schedule that year were Alabama and Georgia. So, and of course, as we know, Tennessee beat Alabama in a magical game that year. And the reason that's relevant is Bill Connolly saw it and nobody else did. And Tennessee ended up indeed going 11-2. And that seemed out of the realm of possibility for a lot of people. I didn't pick 11-2. I did pick a 5-0 start for Tennessee in 2022. I thought they would falter in the second half of the season, though. Boy, was I wrong on that. They stayed afloat, and beating Alabama changed everything. But Bill Connolly was one of the only ones that had them in the top 10 when nobody else even had them in the top 25 at the time, entering Josh Heupel's second year. So again, these SP Plus rankings, guys, don't sleep on them. And Tennessee being number 13 would be a good sign if they didn't have to play three teams that were within one spot of them or higher, and two of those teams, including the team one spot below them, being on the road. It'd be one thing, let's just point this out. It'd be one thing if the number 14 team like Florida, which is a toss-up game, if Florida were at home, and then Alabama, which is number 2, was still on the road, or Georgia at number 4 was still on the road, because then you could chalk up your road loss to one of the better teams. But because Florida, one of the teams below them, is the road game, that's something Tennessee doesn't want to have to deal with. That's what's difficult about this, and that's why these SP Plus rankings are a little bit tough to accept if you're Tennessee and you look, even though it's a good sign that they're higher than many expected, given their schedule, it's not the best sign, and the reason is their schedule's top heavy, because their overall schedule strength isn't going to help them that much as at 9-3, because their schedule strength is ranked number 24, and they could afford for it to be a little higher. And I think that's the biggest problem with the SP Plus rankings. Derek jumps in and says, I've been itching to be negative about this football season. I've just been dialing it back. Alabama and Florida are the wild cards to determine a successful season. Derek, you're right. They got to win one of those two games, and it's going to be tough to win one of them on the road where they haven't won in over 20 years, but they got to win one of them, or they got to upset Georgia at home. I don't know if any of those three are possible. Portions of the program are brought to you by Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations. Your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Chatwith2tsmortgage.com. Chatwith2tsmortgage.com. It is time for What the H? Could the SEC kick out Tennessee? That was a rumor last week related to NIL and stories about that. Here is the report that we understand. The power conferences have required schools to sign a loyalty pledge to abide by whatever rules and guardrails will come up in the House settlement, expected to be addressed later this summer, on how to handle NIL. The state of Tennessee, the Tennessee legislature, has passed its own rule, though, that you have to abide by federal law and not the House settlements if you are Tennessee or Vanderbilt, at which case you can't restrict what college athletes make in NIL money. You can restrict what colleges pay them directly. You can't restrict what they make in the NIL market. Again, that's a totally different scenario, guys, because NIL is about your name, image, and likeness. It's about advertising. It's about endorsement revenue. No other field are people allowed to restrict your endorsement dollars. Okay, even in the NFL where there's a salary cap, they can't restrict your endorsement dollars. That's the big story here. So, Danny White effectively said last week, we're going to abide by Tennessee state law, which also is abiding by federal law when it comes to antitrust lawsuits. That will be in direct violation with the loyalty pledge that schools were required to sign. And that was with all the power conferences. If Tennessee does violate it, they could theoretically be kicked out of the SEC. I think Tennessee should welcome that. What the H? Brought to you by Double D Piping, fire protection, and contractors, providing around-the-clock service, protecting their customers' lives and properties at all times. DoubleDPiping.com. If Tennessee gets kicked out of the SEC, they get a major advantage on their hands. Okay? And let me explain why. Let me break this down because it's a little bit murky. Tennessee, should they get kicked out of, here's what's going to happen. And this is what nobody understands. There is federal law that will back Tennessee in this, no matter what the power conferences do. So Tennessee gets kicked out of the NCAA, gets kicked out of the SEC, gets blackballed for participating in NCAA events because they aren't abiding by the House settlement rules. Tennessee then files a lawsuit against the NCAA, against the entities enforcing the House settlement, whatever comes of that. They take it to court. The Supreme Court, if it gets that high, determines, yeah, this absolutely violates federal antitrust laws, strikes it down. It's back to the drawing board for college football. And then a school has to accept Tennessee. Tennessee can do one of two things. They can be independent, which might be better for them because guess what? They are a contributor to the SEC. They're not a taker like Vanderbilt. So that's actually more money for them if they're independent. Or, and this is a big one, and I want to insist this, Tennessee can hop to the Big Ten at that point. They can't be under contract with the SEC anymore. The SEC kicked them out. Okay? They should go to the Big Ten. I've been telling you guys this for a long time, and I'm sticking with it. And I feel like I'm the only one in media who's noticing it. The SEC is going to continue to fall further and further behind the Big Ten because of these TV contracts. The Big Ten's TV contract is $1 billion per year for 7 years, and now the next 6 because it's already under wraps. The SEC contract is $3 billion, $300 million per year, and they're locked in that for the next 10 years. Now 9 since the first one happened. So the Big Ten is going to be able to renegotiate a contract with its networks before the SEC can, while the Big Ten is already bringing in 3 times more money. Now, true, the Big Ten has 2 more schools. And the Big Ten adding Tennessee would be a third. If you do the math, those schools are still bringing in more money. Even Oregon and Washington, which came in at a discount, are bringing in more money than SEC schools. So Tennessee could then bolt and jump to the Big Ten, and the Big Ten would probably take them at that point because it's a conference arms race. So Tennessee, believe it or not, should welcome being kicked out of the SEC. And that's my poll question right now. And you guys give me your thoughts. I'm going to say it right now. Should Tennessee or should Vols welcome being kicked out of the SEC? And we'll say, yes, they don't need them. And then say, no, tradition is important. And for those who don't remember, the SEC was founded in Knoxville in 1933. Tennessee was a charter member. But if the SEC is going to, and they can't just leave the SEC and join the Big Ten right now, but if the SEC is going to kick them out, and then a lawsuit that blackballs Tennessee happened, and then say the SEC kicks Tennessee out. Tennessee gets blackballed. They sue over getting blackballed. They win in court. The House settlement is struck down. Tennessee then is a free agent and can go where it wants. And I say go to the Big Ten where the money is anyway. What the H is brought to you by Double D Piping, fire protection contractors, providing around-the-clock service, protecting their customers' lives and properties at all time. DoubleDPiping.com.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
The poll question is up. Should the Vols welcome being kicked out of the SEC? Yes, they don't need them. No, tradition is important. You guys give your thoughts on this. I say they should welcome it. Going down to some of the comments, we'll say, let's see. Derek has a great point. Sorry, Derek, I was trying to pull the one. You said, Derek says, I don't mind the independent route. Be the example, not the follower. Exactly. Be the example. Be the leader, not the follower. Okay? That's the way I land on this. Orangewood says, we'll become Notre Dame 2.0. We get special treatment and consideration for the playoffs. Yep. That's the good move. General Ursus, if Tennessee got kicked out, where would they go? Big Ten or independent? Kind of wish they go the independent route. So General Ursus, yeah. So if they got kicked out, they would first get blackballed by everybody in college football. And then they would sue, and then they would win, and they would be the face of suing on behalf of their players even more. And they'd have more players want to play for them, and then they would be able to go where they want as free agents because the SEC kicked them out. Orangeblood says, let's go to the ACC and kick butt. Okay, Orangeblood, I kind of live with that, the ACC and kick butt, but the ACC's TV deal is so bad, and Tennessee just wouldn't be able to compete long-term with that. Derek Owen says, SEC tradition is gone. I think it is. I mean, again, we had a point with SEC tradition when it was 10 teams. My philosophy of the SEC as a regional conference was always this. The conference was formed by schools west and south of the Appalachian Mountains. Okay? You either have to be south or you have to be west of the Appalachian Mountains. That was a directional portion of it. My theory also was you had to be east of the Mississippi River. That was the boundary, okay? You had to be on the eastern side of the Mississippi River, the southern, south or west of the Appalachian Mountains. That was my rule. The original 13 schools in the SEC, which were Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Alabama, Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, LSU, and then Sewanee, Tulane, and Georgia Tech. All 13 of those schools fit that mold. Sewanee gave up football. Georgia Tech and Tulane left. Those 10 schools I just named were still part of that geographical boundary. Once you added Arkansas, which was west of the Mississippi River, and once you added South Carolina, which was east of the Appalachian Mountains, you ditched tradition at that point. Okay, you did. Sorry. And then it got even worse when you added Missouri and Texas A&M, and got even worse when you added Texas and Oklahoma, and now you're a 16-team conference. So, yeah, I think SEC tradition is just not what it was. General Ursa says, I like the channel diversity the Big Ten brings, Fox, NBC, and CBS. You're absolutely right. Orange Blood says Big Ten is in a temporary peak trend. Don't know if long-term they will be over SEC in revenue and dominance historically. Orange Blood, here's the thing. Maybe long-term you could have a point, but the Big Ten peak trend you're talking about, it's just starting. Okay, it's just starting. It's going to be major gaps in about a few years, and then it could get so big the SEC has trouble keeping up. And that's kind of the biggest problem with that. And so we'll kind of see how this happens. John Golden says, when is the kicking out supposed to transpire? Whenever this House settlement is, and that's sometime this summer, and then Tennessee openly flaunts it, then the SEC and the power conferences will try to kick them out and blackball them. So we'll see how that goes. But guys, I mean, when you're talking about tradition, look, tradition is largely dead in college football anyway. Okay, it's just, it is what it is. Tradition has been a thing the whole time. And so I would say that you just have to accept this is where it's going. The poll question, should the Vols welcome being kicked out of the SEC? Yes, they don't need them. 13% no, tradition is important. 87% looks like you guys are disagreeing with me, but I'm sorry. I am Tennessee. I'm going to disagree with the masses here. Tennessee needs to ditch the SEC. They should welcome getting kicked out. I've been saying for a while, Tennessee's in trouble if nothing changes with the SEC and Big Ten dynamics right now, because the entire SEC's in trouble outside of Texas. And the TV revenues, the gap is going to be too big to overcome, guys. I'm telling you, it's going to be way too big to overcome. And then that's going to be an issue. General Ursa says the SEC needs to add North Carolina and Virginia. Then they'll have every Confederate state in the conference. Oklahoma was a Confederate territory. That is true, General Ursus. Here's the funny thing. They also have two Union states, Kentucky and Missouri. Those are border states. So if the SEC really wants to go all in, have every Confederate state and then add the border states. Why not add Maryland and West Virginia and then make Delaware a Division I school? And you can add them. I get your point, though. You're right. They should at least have all the Confederate states at the time in there. So I would say that the SEC does need to add, that Tennessee should welcome the SEC kicking them out. Shots fired by Game No Bueno. Caleb is not even a Tennessee and he's from Memphis. Come on. Okay, that's in Tennessee. And point number 2, this is about the SEC as a whole and the heart of it and the future of it. And I'm telling you guys, protecting the SEC and tradition is going to be your downfall because Greg Sankey's not making good deals. And Orange Blood says it best. Sounds like SEC needs a better TV deal negotiator. They do. And here's the thing. They don't have one. And that's the problem. Portions of the program are brought to you by Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use a promo code HOOKED for 10% off. When we come back, we're going to talk about what an anonymous coach said about Josh Heupel and Tennessee being one of 6 schools to make the postseason in all major sports. That'll be Bank on It and Hot or Cold in that order. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the hook sports.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports, portions of the program brought to you by HoundDogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. hdknoxville.com, hdknoxville.com. Before we move on to our next topic, I want to talk a little bit about this day in Tennessee sports history. And I like to do this from the day after Memorial Day because we don't do a show on Memorial Day. So I'm going to do it here. And that is, this day in Tennessee sports history is just going to acknowledge the 4 former Vols who died during World War II. Bill Noling, Rudy Clare, Willis Tucker, and Clyde I.G. Fuson. They wore number 32, 49, 61, and 62. They're permanently retired and recognized as part of Legends of Tennessee. The Vols did not play the 1943 season due to World War II. They lived up to their name, the Volunteers, all the way up to their head coach and General Nealon. And I've told this story before, but I love to tell it because it's one of my favorite stories. General Nealon, his role in, we already knew that he was a general, World War I, then was in Panama in 1935. So we already knew that he was an effective general. He was an older guy training people in the 1940s. General Nealon's role in World War II is severely underrated. Because what happened was, for those who don't know, one of the reasons that the United States was so successful in World War II was because nobody was aware of their military buildup. So, for those who don't remember, Germany had colonized almost all of Western Europe except for England. Hitler turned his attention east and invaded Russia. He got through the first winter in Russia, actually, believe it or not. And there was a fear, the biggest fear Hitler had was if the United States got involved, he would have to divert resources from invading Russia to fight them from the West. This was why he was okay with the Japanese doing Pearl Harbor and roping the U.S. into the war, because he thought that the U.S. would then be occupied fighting the Japanese in the Pacific, and he wouldn't have to worry about them. The British army was just too small at that point to handle Germany from the West. However, what he didn't prepare for was, after the U.S. got involved in Pearl Harbor, they had done a secret military buildup for 2 years before they got involved in the war. 2 full years, the United States had done a secret military buildup that nobody knew about, which was the biggest thing that helped them get out of the Depression, funny enough. And so they had a gigantic army and a gigantic, vast amount of supplies nobody was aware that they had, to where they could fight the war on 2 fronts, in the Pacific and in Western Europe. And so Hitler had to divert his resources from Russia to fight the U.S. from the West anyway. That watered him down. And then, of course, Russia pushed back and Germany was done at that point. The reason for that military buildup was General Nealon. He was one of the biggest reasons for that military buildup. Think about this. General Nealon was called back to active duty after the 1940 season, in the spring of 1941. Pearl Harbor didn't happen until December of 1941. He spent that summer taking part in the United States secretly building up their military to such a huge degree that nobody was prepared for how easily the U.S. military would be able to fight the war on two fronts, which wrecked what Hitler was trying to do in Germany. Just some cool war strategy for you. I just love that type of history. So I really do like I really do like that type of history. And I think this day in Tennessee sports history, the day after Memorial Day, we need to remember that. The recent poll question before the last commercial break: should the Vols welcome being kicked out of the SEC? Yes, they don't need them. 26%. No, tradition is important. 74%. I'm sorry, I'm with the yes, they don't need them. I'm with the minority in this one. All right, it's time for Hot or Cold, and it's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Tennessee is one of 6 schools to make the postseason in all major sports. And what are all major sports? Men's and women's basketball, football, volleyball, softball, and baseball. To qualify for this list, the school must have been bowl eligible during the college football season. They don't have to qualify for the playoff. And then they have to appear in the NCAA tournament in each of the other major sports. Well, interestingly enough, Tennessee is one of, I want to say, 3 schools. And yeah, they're one of 3 schools to make the college football playoff in the NCAA tournament and all the other major sports that we just named. A big accomplishment for Tennessee. This is what we talk about with them being the everything sport, because they truly are an everything sport, and they're truly proving that week after week after week in the athletic season. Danny White, this is why he's proven to have done such an amazing job in so many ways for Tennessee to make it. Basically, Tennessee has gone to the Women's College World Series. They won the national title last season and are now about to host the Knoxville Regional. So the softball program has already gone to the College World Series. The baseball program is hosting another regional later this week. The football program was part of the college football playoff. The men's basketball program reached the Elite Eight, and the women's basketball program reached the Sweet 16. Now, Tennessee did not win anything in the volleyball tournament, but okay, let's call a spade here and be a little fair. If there's one tournament for you to be the worst in, it's volleyball. If you're going to weight this, Tennessee still has the best look. So we're going to go down the list, and we're going to play a little hot or cold and say, do any of the other 6 schools on this list actually rival Tennessee in terms of athletic success overall? And that's going to be Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. CityHeatandAir.com. CityHeatandAir.com. Let's get rolling. I'm going to say this because this will be triggering, because there's another UT on this list, but not the real UT. I know the real UT is the Vols, but Texas is on this list. Texas got the number 2 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. Their softball team went to the College World Series. The football team made the college football playoff. The women's basketball team made the Final Four. And the volleyball team made it to the regional stage of the NCAA tournament. I'm going to say I'm hot on Texas rivaling Tennessee, because they advance in every sport except one. Now, the reason Tennessee still gets the edge is because you have to weight men's basketball more heavily than other sports, and Tennessee went to the Elite Eight while Texas got bounced out in the first round of the NCAA tournament in men's basketball. And Texas, I think there's an argument, barely even belonged in the NCAA tournament. So I'm going to give Tennessee the edge, but Texas making the Final Four women's basketball is a huge deal. Okay, so that's a big part of it. Because the story's not written yet with the college baseball and women and college softball NCAA tournaments, I'm hot on Texas having a chance to surpass Tennessee for the best athletic year. We'll have to see how things shake out on the diamond. All right, Oregon. Oregon won the Big Ten championship in football, their first year in the Big Ten, making the college football playoff. They made it further than Tennessee, although both lost their first game in the playoff, and it was to Ohio State. Oregon technically lost in a later round, so Oregon technically went further in the playoff. The volleyball, men's and women's basketball, and softball and baseball teams have all been a big part of it as well. Oregon is hosting a regional in baseball. The softball team is also headed to the College World Series. And then the men's and women's basketball program and volleyball programs found enough success to make their respective tournaments as well, although they didn't go anywhere with it. Although they didn't go anywhere in those tournaments, I'm actually still hot on Oklahoma potentially finding a way to surpass Tennessee in terms of athletic success. But to do it, I would say they have to win it in both baseball and softball. So I'm hot on it, but I'm actually, from a realistic perspective, cold on it. Because while winning their conference title does outweigh what Tennessee did in football, the lack of success on the court for both sports compared to Tennessee in both sports is just too much to overcome. Those sports do matter, particularly men's basketball. So with that, I got Oregon. I'm hot on them potentially passing Tennessee, but just barely. Oklahoma made a bowl game. Now, the men's and women's basketball programs lost early in the NCAA tournament. I want to say, I believe they've lost in the first weekend, both of them. I'm pretty sure they did. So, and the volleyball team didn't make it past the regional in their NCAA tournament. However, the softball team could go win its 5th consecutive national championship, and the baseball program is headed to the Chapel Hill Regional this weekend. Again, because softball is so successful, if Oklahoma wins it in both sports, I'll say that they have a chance to surpass. No, I won't. Being 6-7 in football is just too much. No, Oklahoma can't surpass Tennessee in terms of athletic success in the major sports that matter, just with what they did there. I'm not going to give it to them. North Carolina, the Tar Heels almost missed the NCAA tournament, but they backed in. They backed in at the end on the final day. They also almost missed the postseason, but barely squeaked by with 6 wins. The women's team had the number 3 seed in the tournament. The volleyball team made it to the second round of the NCAA tournament, and the softball team is in the postseason for the first time, and baseball will host a regional. However, North Carolina, there's absolutely nothing North Carolina can do to surpass Tennessee. Sorry, they were backing in on so many different sports. There is nothing North Carolina can do. I'm totally cold on them. Sorry, I don't care if they win it in softball and baseball. North Carolina's not close. Hot or Gold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. City Heating and Air Conditioning. cityheatandair.com. The final school we will bring up in 1 second. First, a quick message from City Heating and Air Conditioning.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
All right, the final school on this list, the Ole Miss Rebels. 2 years removed from a national title in baseball. They are now in the Women's College World Series in softball, and they are hosting an Oxford Regional in baseball. They had a 10-3 season under Lane Kiffin, just missing the college football playoff. And the men's and women's basketball programs both made it to the Sweet 16, while the volleyball team won an NCAA tournament game. Men's and women's making the Sweet 16, volleyball team winning NCAA tournament game, just missing out on the college football playoff, while Tennessee wasn't much better given the way they lost in the first round. As of right now, Tennessee's ahead of Ole Miss. However, if Ole Miss wins a national title and on the diamond in one of the sports, and Tennessee doesn't, then Ole Miss will have a case. They have a chance to surpass Tennessee. They have to do significantly better than Tennessee on the diamond in both sports. Significantly so. We're not there yet. We're going to have to see how it goes. But I think it's very, very, very possible that Ole Miss does do better on the diamond. And look, I got to be honest. I think Ole Miss really could do that. Look, the baseball NCAA tournament is the most gimmicky way to crown a champion. I'm just going to say that, okay? And I know that's a hot take, but the baseball NCAA tournament, I think it's a horrible way to crown a champion. I think it's a joke. I think it's a bit of a gimmick, but it makes it possible for Ole Miss to win one, and they are hosting a regional, and they were able to win one 2 years ago. So I wouldn't put it past them to do it. Ole Miss hosting a regional is a huge deal. So I would say, yeah, believe it or not, they could, in my opinion, surpass Tennessee on that field. We'll see how it goes going forward. Don't know for sure, but I certainly think it's possible. Ole Miss could definitely surpass Tennessee. But again, that's because they were so close despite missing the college football playoff. They just barely missed it. So if you're going to count bowl games too for postseason, I'm going to make that almost interchangeable. Certainly making the playoff is a much bigger accomplishment. But again, Ole Miss was right there. They were right there. So that's why I think they could surpass Tennessee if they do that. Portions of the program are brought to you by Peak IV Hydration in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live your life to the fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. PeakIVHydration.com. Link in the chat down below. Also dropping in the chat, I wanted to tell you guys again, for those of you who weren't here for the beginning of the show, I am starting, I'm trying to grow my own following in sports, and part of that is I'm also going to start doing a live nightly podcast where I talk about sports on a broad level, and that's going to be called Sports Nightcap. I'm dropping the link to that. Please like the first video. I've dropped the first video yesterday. Please like that video, watch that, leave a comment, tell me what you think. Subscribe to it. Sports Nightcap, again, that's the name of the channel. I just dropped the link to Sports Nightcap down below. I'm going to love to talk about sports on a broader level. We're going to talk a little NBA playoffs. We did that last night. We'll be live again tonight after the Knicks play the Pacers. The way I'm going to go about this show is I'm going to go live after the latest big game event of the day, whatever that may be in sports, whether that be a Major League Baseball All-Star game, an NBA playoff game, an NFL game, regular season, whatever it may be. I'm going to go live after that, but that won't be the only thing I talk about that day. I'll talk about sports news in general. So again, please like and subscribe to that channel, youtube.com at Sports Nightcap. Again, link in the chat down below. Please like and subscribe to that. I had fun doing this last night and I want to keep doing it. And leave a comment on the videos. Give me your feedback. Tell me what you think. It's a new thing I'm doing. I'm just trying to branch out in other sports because as much as I love covering Tennessee sports, I love a ton of sports. You guys know I'm a hardcore Grizzly fan as well. I'm a big Orioles fan. And I'm obviously a Titans fan. And I want to have fun with you guys while y'all watch me melt down over my Titans just screwing things up later this year as they do every year. So again, please subscribe to that channel. Link is in the chat. When we come back, an anonymous coach made a comment on Josh Heupel's offense that seemed critical at first, but could be a good sign. We're going to talk about that. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the hook. Sports.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beat. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Portions of the program are brought to you by Quality Tire Pro, serving Chattanooga community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive brake alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com. Walk in and say, "Hey, Bo, Off the Hook Sports sent you." QualityTirePros.com. All right. An anonymous coach has commented on Josh Heupel's offense and the state of the program amidst the Nico Iamaleava departure. In the Athlon Sports College Football Magazine, which was released this week, comments by anonymous coaches came out on the players. And the Athlon Sports article part on Tennessee had one anonymous coach talking specifically about the offense. Here's what was said. Losing Nico isn't good. They're not replacing him with a more talented quarterback, and they're losing the quarterback who ran their system in a playoff game. But because of the way everything went down, I don't think anyone blames the program or Josh Heupel. And with the turnover on defense, Nico leaving makes a transition year a lot easier to stomach. The offense won't fall off a cliff. That system is effective at adjusting for personnel, even the quarterback. I fully and 100% agree with everything that was just said. Look, I've told you guys this before. I think all things being equal, Tennessee would much rather have Nico Iamaleava than Joey Aguilar. I think they went all in for Nico Iamaleava for a reason. But I also think that they went all in. But I also think they were happy to go for Joey Aguilar. Now, I've said this before, and I said this last week, 2 weeks ago before I went on break. I think Tennessee is going about the NIL money and the recruiting cycle all wrong. I think it's more important that they use NIL money to shore up their weapons around the quarterback rather than getting the right quarterback, because the offense is very easy to figure out for a quarterback. I did say wrongly, Nico was created in a lab to run Josh Heupel's offense. That turned out to be disastrously untrue. Not that Nico was bad in the offense, but he wasn't created in a lab to run it. I can tell you that much. And so with that in mind, I think Tennessee needs to focus less on the quarterback and more on the talent around him, barring, physical limitations of the quarterback. The quarterback should be able to do the bare minimum. I think the most important thing is to have an accurate enough deep ball and have enough confidence to sling it around. Josh Heupel's offense doesn't give you a lot of chances to throw interceptions. But the key point here is that the offense won't fall off a cliff. That system is effective at adjusting for personnel, even the quarterback. That sounds like Jeff Levy said that. When you talk about an anonymous coach, Jeff Levy was Josh Heupel's offense coordinator at UCF. He was part of developing this offense. He's running it at Mississippi State as a head coach at Mississippi State. He seems to know a lot about the offense. So if you ask me, my guess is that Jeff Levy's the one who said it, but it could be an assistant somewhere else. We don't know. It could be someone who's worked with Tennessee. Again, this is an anonymous coach. Maybe it's Alex Golage. I don't know if it's an anonymous SEC coach or not. So it could be anybody, anywhere. I have a feeling, though, the way it was described, it sounds like a coach who's familiar with the offense, who's either worked in it or has gone up against it quite a few times. And so I think that that's one of the big reasons that there's some value in this. And so Timothy McGee says he needs to change their offensive scheme. I'm not so sure the changing of the scheme matters as much, Timothy, as much as Heupel needs to evaluate talent better when he puts together the personnel. Derek says, easy to learn offense. Reads are cut in half, and Nico still couldn't grasp the offense and run it correctly. Derek, I'm going to somewhat disagree with you on that. I think Nico did grasp the offense. I think Nico was slow to get rid of the ball, unwilling to let certain players win jump balls on the outside. But I do think Nico did pick up the offense. He knew what he was doing and he knew where he wanted to go. It's just he was slow to make a decision on the field a lot of times. And it didn't help, by the way, that he was seeing ghosts because of Lance Hurd's injury at left tackle earlier in the year and John Campbell Jr.'s injury at right tackle. The tackle issue made Nico see ghosts. So he got a little nervous. I'm not going to deny that. But I do think he picked up the offense. I think he kind of understood it. The offense is, again, it's hard for a receiver to pick up because receivers have to learn route options, and they have to be in sync with the quarterback doing it. But ironically, funny enough, it's not hard for the quarterback to do it, because here's the thing you have to remember. There is a right decision for the receiver and the quarterback to make. They both just have to make it. And it's harder for the receiver to do it than the quarterback because the receiver is not reading the safety as easily pre-snap. So that's where they have to learn. The receiver has to kind of react to what the safety does, and the quarterback can see it more directly. So the quarterback, again, it's very easy for the quarterback to learn the offense. Very, very, very easy. It's tricky for the receiver to learn the offense. Dan Yoder says, slow to let it go when the line is stepping out of the way of the defenders. Yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying with the line. I think that we have to be fair. The tackles were just struggled last year. Derek says, Caleb, Tennessee was horrible in the first half and hardly played with the leads. That was the identity until Milton and Nico. Derek, no, I get your point, but Derek, you also have to be fair and say that, again, Josh Heupel's personnel talent building has been a problem. We got to put this on him. He hasn't built the talent with the weapons the way he should have to this point. There have been teams that have adjusted to this system. The 3-3-5 shell defense changes things a lot because, as you saw last year, it wasn't just Tennessee who struggled offensively. Lincoln Riley and USC all of a sudden took a major step back offensively. So did Alex Golesh at USF. Jeff Levy had a bad first year at Mississippi State. Teams were adjusting to the offense, and it's now on Heupel to readjust to further respond to it. That's why he brought in Seth Littrell, and that may be why Seth Littrell could replace Joey Halsey in a year. Seth Littrell didn't work at Oklahoma, but that was a totally different story altogether. But with all that in mind, I'll say this much. Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, Life Made Better. Bank on it. This anonymous coach at Athlon Sports is right. Tennessee's offense won't fall off a cliff. This system is still effective. Bank on it.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
That's right. Bank on it. Tennessee's offense won't fall off a cliff. And the reason Tennessee's offense won't fall off a cliff is, and this is the big reason, is because it's not hard for a quarterback to figure out. And look, Josh Heupel has shown this. Whatever other issues he has, he's willing to stick to the ground game if you're going to commit to that 3-3-5 shell defense so you don't get beat over the top. That's how Dylan Sampson last year set the single season school record for rushing yards and rushing touchdowns in a year, because Josh Heupel stuck with it. And he was not willing to break from it unless the other teams cheated up. He never got impatient. That was an issue with Steve Spurrier back in the day when people called Heupel the new Spurrier. Spurrier's a better overall play caller, but one of the things people figured out was if you played a shell defense, Spurrier would get frustrated in the second half and still just try to chuck it because he would just get a little bit desperate. Something Tennessee did to Florida in 2001, if you remember the way Tennessee beat him that year when they had Rex Grossman. So that's a big part of it. Dan Yoder says, I think the offense has to change and get better at using more of the field. They have the talent to compete. You're right. They do have to use more of the field. Part of this, though, is that if they're going to spread out with the shell to stop it, then you don't have to use too much of the field. Just gash them running the ball a lot. That's a lot of what they did last year. Derek says the talent hasn't panned out to offset other teams figuring out the offense. You're right, Derek, and that's been the biggest issue with Heupel to this point. Timothy McGee says, yes, the QB makes the line better to get the ball fast and quit with the long ball and go 5 and 10 yards. Quarterbacks need to take what the defense is giving them. Totally agree with you on that. But I do think last year there were some issues with the line at tackle specifically. And Derek says teams are content playing scared and letting them run the ball. And I agree, Derek. And I'm saying if they're going to do that, you run it 40 times a game. Orange Blood says, good system, but no one's offensive or defensive system is invincible. Teams are always adapting and catching up. It's a constant evolution. Just got to be open to adapt. You're right. And Orange Blood, to be fair, they did adapt last year. Again, that's where you got the 12 personnel running the ball. Now, part of that was the injuries at tackle, but it was also because teams were playing a 3-3-5 shell defense constantly. And with the 3-3-5 shell, Josh Heupel said, I'm going to run it down your throat. I didn't have much of a problem with Josh Heupel's play calling last year. The only time I had a big problem with it was when Tennessee beat Florida in overtime, and Josh Heupel decided to throw it multiple times for some God knows why reason, when all Tennessee had to do was make a game-winning field goal. It's like he wanted the touchdown and he wanted the passing yards for Nico, because that made no sense. But in general, I'm with you. I got no issue with it whatsoever. So that's where I would land on that. And I think in general, though, the offense is going to be fine. I wouldn't worry about it to this point. My bank on it is what this anonymous coach said. The offense is not going to take a step back. Portions of the program brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com, RickTerryJewelry.com. That brings us to the stat of the day, and I accidentally let it slip and tease it earlier. I hope you were paying attention, and because you could guess what it is if you were. Not that it matters, but the stat of the day is this. It's kind of an interesting one. Last year, Nico Iamaleava was the first quarterback under Josh Heupel's tenure at Tennessee, he's been there for 4 years, to start every game of a season. Crazy, right? In 2021, Joe Milton started the first 2 games. Hendon Hooker started the final 11. In 2022, Hendon Hooker started the first 11 games. Joe Milton started the final 2. In 2023, Joe Milton started all 12 games of the regular season. Nico Iamaleava started the bowl game. And then last year, Nico Iamaleava started every game in the regular season last year. It's the only time that has happened in Josh Heupel's tenure at Tennessee. Kind of crazy to think about. The stat of the day is brought to you by Work Trucks. They're all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down and has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process is also quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with nap-hide work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Trucks supplies vehicles to people just like you and get you back on the road tomorrow. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks, and that's a fact. Service industry, remember Work Trucks. Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have. You need Work Trucks. Clinton Highway in Knoxville and in downtown Birmingham. For the entire inventory, go online to WorkTrucksLLC.com, WorkTrucksLLC.com with an X. Why risk chancing your future why risk chancing your future and business on the wrong piece of equipment that burns your time? WorkTrucksLLC.com. Work Trucks will also work to make sure you have the perfect vehicle you have to have. They'll even find a perfect truck, outfit it, and make sure it fits your needs to a T. Work Trucks with an X. LLC.com. WorkTrucksLLC.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. When we come back, we are going to talk about Greg Sankey melting down at the SEC spring meetings in Texas. That'll be 4 down. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports, portions of the program brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates, facebook.com/sports treasures TN, facebook.com/sports treasures TN. Also brought to you by the UPS store Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses with a wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated, 10629 Hardin Valley Road. Time to dive in with our final topic, and it's Greg Sankey. Greg Sankey, SEC commissioner, spoke on Sunday to kick off the SEC spring meetings in Destin. Our own Jimmy Hyams is down there covering it right now. And Greg Sankey has decided that he's going to have a meltdown and complain about everything. And I'm going to go 4 downs here. This brings us to 4 downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Greg Sankey's meltdown on all of these things are all part of one bigger thing. And I'm actually going to break down what it is, but it really stood out the way he handled things. And I'm going to talk about everything he said. So Greg Sankey lashes out at a press conference to kick off SEC spring meetings. And that is going to be 4 downs. Let's start with first down. And this is a crazy one. Okay, because I didn't see this one coming, but this is something that Greg Sankey started. Greg Sankey said, quote, I kid you not, at the press conference, I have people asking in my room asking, why are we still in the NCAA? According to Ross Dellinger, the SEC has asked for more autonomy for the 4 conferences and said, quote, I don't have the authority to just depart the NCAA. I've shared with the decision-making working group that I have people in my room asking, why are we still in the NCAA? Sounds like Greg Sankey wants as much autonomy as possible and doesn't care who falls by the wayside on the lower levels. Now, again, people are complaining about this, but Greg Sankey has a job to do to look out for the SEC. People who, this is part of expansion, by the way, was to get the SEC more power at the table and to let the group of 5 shut up by getting their one team. For those who wanted expansion in the college football playoff, this was how it was always going to work. I don't think people realize, and I said this from the start, people didn't understand that you were doing the bidding of the SEC when you fought for expansion. You thought expansion was going to keep the SEC in check. It was going to do the opposite, okay? Because there's going to be more teams getting in, and you're doing the bidding when you push for expansion. I said that from the start. So, look, that's the way it is. But first down, Greg Sankey saying, why are we still in the NCAA? Saying, I don't have the authority. Basically saying if there was a legal avenue, he would ditch the NCAA. That's a crazy one. Second down, Greg Sankey unloads on the 2 lesser conferences to the SEC and Big Ten, which is the ACC and Big 12. Yeah. And basically he said, I kid you not, quote, I don't need lectures from others about the good of the game. This is when talked about the SEC expansion, fighting for automatic qualifiers in the college football playoff and things like that. And he says that he's been the one who's been working to save the ACC and Big 12 all along. So to his point, he's talking about giving the ACC and Big 12 automatic bids was part of it. He said the ACC's part in the delay of the failed alliance between the Big 10 and Pac-12 was another part of it. He says, you can issue your press statements, but I'm looking for ideas to move us forward. The SEC didn't need the playoff. That was for the good of the game. Now, I disagree that it was for the good of the game, but at the same time, Sankey does have a point on this for the Big 12 to complain and the ACC. The ACC and Big 12 want more access to the college football playoff. But where Sankey is leaning is that the ACC helped block college football playoff expansion coming earlier. And by doing that, they kept an undefeated Florida State from going to the playoff in 2023. That's how Alabama got in over them. So you can't really say that those schools are looking out for it either. So that's second down. I got to say, I agree with Greg Sankey that when he gets lectured about not thinking about the good of the game and thinking about himself, he's right. He's thinking about the conference and not the long-term health of college football. But so is every other conference commissioner, and so is every other conference. I got issues with Greg Sankey. I got issues with the way he's gone about it. But I don't think the Big 12 or ACC has any moral high ground to stand on just because of that idea of, oh, well, the SEC and Big 10 are taking over and it's bad for the game. They made a lot of decisions themselves that were bad for the game too. So I don't think that's fair at all. Okay. Now here's a good one. Greg Sankey got upset with a reporter at the tournament at the event, because he was asked specifically about automatic qualifiers. Now, under the format being discussed, the SEC and Big Ten would automatically get 4 each season. A reporter compared it to the NCAA tournament a decade ago and said that had this been done a decade ago, the ACC would have the most, though they wouldn't have deserved it recently. So why should there be a long-term commitment to certain conferences getting a certain number? Greg Sankey responds, is that an editorial or a question? He says, and the reporter goes, that's been asked by critics, reporters, everybody out there, lots at stake. So the question was this. If automatic qualifiers were a thing for other sports, the ACC would have locked in a contract with that many 10 years ago. So why, and then it would look bad now since the SEC is a better basketball conference. So why should this be a thing for football, given how we don't know things are going to go long term? Sankey tried to call him out, saying it was an opinionated question rather than a question from a reporter. The reporter says this has been asked by critics and reporters everywhere, lots at stake. Greg Sankey responds, I don't know what you're saying. Wait, stop. What's the question? The question is very simple. Why would this be why should this be done in college football and when it's not done in college basketball? And Greg Sankey's response was, your question assumes like one variable when I just walked through there are other variables. Well, I let you ask your question so you can decide if you want me to answer the question or not. So there's not one variable you asked about, right? Which is if you do this, I began by saying we're not committed at this point to something. We're interested. That's a lie. They're committed. That reporter asked a perfectly legitimate question, and it doesn't matter whether or not it's an editorial question or not. It's a question that's on everybody's mind about the automatic qualifiers. Now, my argument with the automatic qualifiers is Josh Pate's argument with the automatic qualifiers. If you hate that system, if you hate that format, you shouldn't have fought for expansion. This was how it was always going to end, okay? Expansion in the college football playoff in a dog-eat-dog world of conference autonomy was going to lead to this. So blame nobody but those things. Don't blame the idea that there are automatic qualifiers if you wanted expansion. Look in the mirror. This was the natural outgrowth of it. Again, 4 downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. We'll bring you 4th down now after this quick message from Ted Russell Ford.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford.
4th down, and I actually agree with Greg Sankey on this. He called out the college football playoff format and said, quote, it's clear that not losing is more important than opponent quality. Now, this improves this year because of the straight seeding model, but the straight seeding model doesn't improve the issue of who gets into the playoff, because last year they put value on record over everything else, and that proved to be disastrous. The reason I bring up that point is because, again, Indiana didn't belong in the playoff. SMU didn't belong in the playoff. They had better records than Alabama and Ole Miss and South Carolina. They weren't better teams than Alabama and Ole Miss and South Carolina. And the truth be told, I'm sorry, Indiana proved they didn't belong. Now, I know Tennessee lost their first game too as the 8 seed, but Tennessee did prove they belonged. They were 10-2 with a much tougher schedule, and also they lost to the eventual national champion. But Greg is kind of right that they proved last year they're not going to give you credit for scheduling tough non-conference games, because Indiana got rewarded for scheduling 3 horrible out-of-conference games and playing the worst Big Ten schedule. Why would anybody schedule tough out-of-conference? And see, this is why Greg Sankey's fighting for the automatic qualifiers. One of the things I'll give him credit for is you're disincentivizing scheduling quality opponents when you have a 12-team playoff and you just go by record at that point. Now, funny enough, when you have a 2-team playoff, it matters more to schedule the quality opponents because you could go undefeated and get left out if you don't play anybody. Cite Auburn 2004, okay? But when you have a 12-team playoff, you disincentivize scheduling quality opponents because the committee didn't take that into account at all last year. So I actually agree with Greg Sankey on that, guys. So what is all this about? What is all this about with Greg Sankey? He's frustrated. He's frustrated and flustered because he has the SEC stuck in a bad contract that he can't fix, and they're about to address things like a 9-game schedule, new contracts, dealing with ESPN this week that he's going to have to answer for because the Big Ten is lapping the SEC in money, and it's only going to get worse because the Big Ten signed a better deal. He's also frustrated that he can't seem to get the Big Ten on board with what he wants for the college football playoff. By the way, I think it's the Big Ten that wants the automatic qualifiers more than the SEC, funny enough. He's frustrated that he can't get agreements and consensus from the other power conferences on things he wants, and that he's falling behind the Big Ten in terms of having negotiated bad deals. And he's going to have to answer for that this week at the SEC spring meeting because there's a lot of unhappy athletic directors and coaches. I'll tell you that much. That's what this is about. And it's probably only going to get worse. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by tscottjones.com. We are live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Once again, I'll be back on tonight on another channel that I'm launching where I talk sports on a broad scale. It's Sports Nightcap. I just dropped the link in the chat down below. Please, please, please subscribe. Check out my first video that I dropped yesterday. My plan is to go live after major sporting events a certain number of nights a week. So tonight I'll be live after the Knicks-Pacers game, and I'll talk about the Knicks-Pacers game while then also talk about some other news in sports. That's going to be my model for that. So please jump on that. If you want to hear more from me, hop in tonight, listen to what I got to say, subscribe to that podcast or to subscribe to that YouTube channel, Sports Nightcap. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Please still hit like and subscribe for this channel as we're building something great here at Off the Hook Sports. I would love to have you guys on both channels because I want to grow my audience as much as possible, and I just love talking sports, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So thank you guys all for hanging with me today with Caleb Calhoun. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.